It was announced yesterday that the Springboks will be taking on Wales on the 22nd of June at Twickenham Stadium. However, many star players like Handré Pollard and even Siya Kolisi probably aren't available for the match. Don't know what I mean? Let me explain. So to give you a little bit of context behind this whole situation, the Springboks are playing Wales at Twickenham on the 22nd of June. Now, first of all, why play an international friendly? Well, we played one against New Zealand last year, also at Twickenham, and we played against England in 2022 at Twickenham. Now, I think with a big sponsor like Qatar Airways, it's quite obvious that the primary motivator behind this game is monetary. I have absolutely no problem with this. SA Rugby and the Welsh Rugby Union need to make money, and they also want to do some refurbishments on Twickenham Stadium, so some profits will go towards Twickenham and getting them their refurbished stadium. This event is also a double header. The Springboks will face Wales and the Barbarians will face Fiji all on the same day, so it comes as a double header. It's good exposure for the likes of Fiji, and it's always fun to watch the Barbarians run around. The problem with this whole event is that it happens on the 22nd of June, and for a couple of reasons which I'm going to state in a moment, but a lot of the South African players will not be available for this game. Wales will also have a similar problem with not being able to probably select their strongest 15 just because of the timing of this game. I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean, but that is the premise of this video, that the best 23-man squad for the Springboks and for Wales will not be on that field, and that is guaranteed. So what do I mean? Well, there's going to be several star players, probably from both sides, but I think this affects the Springboks slightly more, who will not be able to take part in this fixture, and there's two main reasons for this. Firstly, this match takes place on the exact same day as the URC final, so any players that play in the URC final for either side will not be available to play in this fixture. And if you think back to 2 years ago, the Bulls played the Stormers in the URC final, and if that happens this time, then both the Bulls players and the Stormers players that typically play for the Springboks will not be available for selection. Also, this is a possible scenario. The Bulls currently sit third and the Stormers currently sit sixth, so if it does end up being a Bulls Stormers final, then Rassie Erasmus has some serious selection problems. Secondly, this match falls outside of the official World Rugby international window, which starts on the 1st of July. This game being on the 22nd of June is a couple of days before that, which means that the international clubs will not have to release the players if they don't want to. So there's sort of four categories to break this down into: the Japanese players, the top 14 players, the English Premiership players, and then you've got the URC players. So to start off with the Japanese players, their season would have already concluded before this game starts, and South African Rugby, it's known that South African Rugby has a good relationship with these Japanese clubs, so it's normally not a problem, which means that Jesse Creel, Mostert, Kwagga Smith, Cheslin Colby, Faf, Daylende, and Malcolm Mark should be available for this test against Wales. I'm going to bring up the 2022 test match against England at Twickenham, the exact same test that we're playing against Wales, but in 2022, where this was the case where a couple of the leagues had not stopped. However, the Japanese league had concluded, and then they did release their players and were allowed to play in that 2022 game against England. Remember that game, because I'm going to bring it up in just a moment. Now, if we move over into the non-South African URC teams, it's players like Steven Kitshoff who could miss out, for example, if he plays in the URC final, or if Ulster just decide not to release him, then Steven Kitshoff will not be available for selection. There's a lot fewer players in the URC that play for different clubs than they are in the English Premiership and top 14. Now onto the players who play in the top 14 and the English Premiership. Now, the English Premiership final is on the 8th of June, 2 weeks before this clash, but English clubs are known not to release players just like they did before the 2022 game against England in Twickenham. Now, in 2022, the Springboks were playing against England, so maybe they saw it as direct competition, but in 2022, the English clubs didn't release Handré Pollard, Jasper Visser, and Andre Esterhuizen, who all missed that 2022 clash against England. So if they wanted to, they could not release Handré Pollard, Jasper Visser, and Andre Esterhuizen again, before this game against Wales. Something tells me that they probably won't, just so that they can stick to their word that it wasn't because we were playing England. So I don't think Handré Pollard, Jasper Visser, and those boys over in the English Premiership are going to be available for selection against Wales. And then in the top 14, that final happens on the 28th of June, which is after the Springboks and Wales games. Siya Kolisi plays for Racing 92, and they do have a chance to make it all the way through to the final, which means that Siya Kolisi will not be available for selection against Wales. So to conclude everything I've said into a nice little package, Rassie and the Springboks will not be able to pick players from the URC final, players who are playing in the English Premiership most likely, and players who are playing in the top 14 most likely. So worst case scenario, let's say the Bulls and Stormers make the final hypothetically, then the Springboks will be without players like Kanan Moody, Kurtley Orense, Damian Willemse, Manie Lebok, just to name a few. They'll also be without the English Premiership players, which is no Pollard, no Jasper Visser, and then they'll be without their top 14 players if Racing make it all the way to the final, and if they decide not to release Siya Kolisi, then Siya Kolisi will not be available for selection. So while this is quite a negative point, we can flip it on its head and make it positive. We saw that the Springbok alignment camp got released, 43 players, 16 uncapped. This could be an opportunity for Rassie and the Springboks to play all of these new players, give them some experience in a game that doesn't really mean anything, and then we can go into the series against Ireland and the Rugby Championship with a bit better of an idea of how these youngsters will deal with that pressure on the international stage. As always, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.